Hi guys, it's Ray here from MyMy. This evening I am joined with my friend and a friend who MyMy, Mr. Tom Hearn. Tom is a psychotherapist. He is also a life coach, amongst other things, and he is here today to help us, suppose, help us help ourselves navigate these unsure times. I felt it was very beneficial for Tom to share some of his message with us. I find it personally myself very beneficial over the years that I've known Tom, and he has delivered a huge amount of courses for us over the last sort of 10 or so years. Most recent has been his PEPS course, PEPS Fit, which stands for Physical, Emotional, Psychological, and Spiritually Fit. Tom believes through looking after all of these aspects in our life, we would be able to cope and deal with anything that is thrown our way. So today we are faced with something extremely unusual, something that I didn't foresee, or I don't believe anyone has foreseen. We've had to adapt and change. We've had to come away from our friends and our family, we had to make some drastic changes within our own life to stay safe. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to Tom. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Ray, and thank you very much for inviting me today. It's just a privilege to be here. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. So as I say, Tom, I would love to hear and discuss with you what you feel may be beneficial right now, or things that you're maybe doing yourself, and things that you're maybe suggesting to some of your clients to help navigate these waters.
Well, it is challenging times, and we're getting lots of good ideas from all different sources, and sometimes it's difficult to pick the wheat from the chaff, as it were. However, some of the tried and tested things that I have found throughout the years work really well now. And I suppose I'm going to start off with what I usually start off with, and that is showing people how nasal breathing can help them live a healthier life. I mean, the air that we breathe is so important to us. We can live something like 3 weeks without food. We can live something like 3 days without water, but not very long without air. Now, the quality of the air that we breathe is very important in these times, especially. So, using the nose, which is a fabulous filter, can help us stay healthy during these times. Like, if we look at the architecture of the nose, it's a phenomenal piece of kit. And to me, the breathing is fundamental to our health. And it's one of the really big pillars of health, which is healthy breathing. Now, if you notice, every time that I stop talking, for example, I close my mouth. So I close my mouth between sentences, and I keep my sentences short. Now, there's a reason for that. It means I don't breathe in through my mouth between sentences. Now, if we watch newscasters and people that talk for a living, they regularly breathe through their mouth, and you can hear them breathing. So breathing is silent. Now, the nose is very important because, well, we have a couple of layers of defense. For example, we have little hairs in the nose that take out anything big in the air. And then we breathe through a mucus blanket that takes out the fines. And the nose and the nasal cavity will take something like 70 to 75% of what's in the air out. And the actual flow of air through the nose will give us, it asks the body to reduce, asks the parasternal nasal cavities to produce nitric oxide, which actually sterilizes the air, and it also helps us to distribute the air through the lungs. Now, I'm not saying that nitric oxide is the be-all and end-all. You see, this coronavirus is so novel and so young that the research hasn't been done. However, we do find that in past viruses that have been really, that have been the scourge in earlier years, 2003, 2005, for example, we found that the nitric oxide was very useful in dealing with the viruses of yesteryear. Now, whether it deals with this one at the minute, I don't know, but I do know that it's much healthier to breathe through the nose. Now, if someone has difficulty breathing through the nose, it's actually blocked because we don't use it usually. So if we can get ourselves to gently breathe in and out through the nose, and it's about gently breathing. This big breathing stuff it's not useful. When we breathe gently, we can allow the air to pick up the nitric oxide, bring it to the lungs, increase the uptake of oxygen in the lungs, and the whole organism works much better. So it's about taking small breaths and taking less of them. So it's amazing how nasal breathing, for example, will help other people as well that are around you. Because if I breathe out through my mouth, well, we know that the social distancing thing is 2 meters. So if I breathe out through my mouth, well, that air will go a certain distance. But if I'm breathing out through my nose, it's tending to go down because just of the architecture of the nose. Plus, when I breathe out through my nose, the moisture expelled from the nose compared to moisture expelled from the mouth is reduced by 42%. So not only are we taking responsibility for our own breathing and our own health, we're actually making it better for the people around us. And that's just something that I think is useful for people to know. Now, I breathe through my nose at all times. I'm including physical exercise. Like when I go walking, I do breath holds. I breathe in through the nose, out through the nose, and I hold my breath for 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 steps. Now, that mightn't be for everyone, but basically if we can keep our mouths closed while walking, we'll have a much better, the walk will be much more beneficial for us. It's amazing. Let your nasal parameters dictate the pace, whether you're running, walking, whatever you're doing. Sometimes we might have to, if we're not used to nasal breathing, we might have to stop. We might have to go slower. That's fine too. But it's actually better for the body if we breathe in and out through the nose and depend on the nasal parameters to dictate the pace. It's fascinating. Like I've done quite a bit of work with different sportsmen, and my colleague Patrick McKeown has done loads of research on Olympic athletes, showing them that breathing in and out through the nose makes all the sense in the world for even elite athletes. So for us, breathing in and out through the nose is the only way to do it as far as I'm concerned. Now, I tape my mouth at night as well, so to ensure that I breathe in and out through the nose at night. That mightn't be for everyone, but basically I tape my mouth and I can, it's like a cue to my subconscious mind that the day is over, it's time to sleep, and I fall asleep very quickly. It's amazing how a good night's sleep can be instrumental in really good health. So what I'm asking you to consider is breathe in and out through the nose, and breathe in and out through the nose whenever possible. If your nose is blocked, unblock it. And it's very easy to unblock. All we have to do is to simply breathe in through the nose, small breath in, small breath out, hold the breath and sway. Or walk up and down until you need to breathe. And when you need to breathe, recover breathing through the nose. And when I say the need to breathe, just until it becomes uncomfortable. This isn't about heroics or pushing, no pain, no gain. It's the opposite to it. It's just if we feel any discomfort, then recover through the nose. And if we do that a few times, you'll find that your nose will totally unblock. We used to hold our nose, and sometimes we can hold our nose as well, but make sure you wash your hands first, because wash your hands before and after. Just breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the nose, hold the breath, hold the nose, and walk up and down until you feel an urge to breathe, then recover, breathing in and out through the nose. And you'd be amazed at how calming that can be. So people that are feeling anxious, use the breath. Do wee small breath holds. Breathe in through the nose, out through the nose, hold the breath for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 seconds. Whatever you feel comfortable with. Then recover breathing through the nose and do it again. And keep doing that until the anxiety subsides. And you'd be amazed at how it will subside. And it will subside much quicker than taking a deep breath will. So the first thing I would like to really get over to you is the importance of breathing in and out through the nose, because it's our first line of defense. Nitric oxide is the first line of defense for dealing with viruses and pathogens in the body. So when we breathe it in, if it's in the air, let the nitric oxide deal with it. And hopefully down the line, we'll find that nitric oxide does have a really beneficial effect for this particular virus. At this point in time, we don't know, but it's definitely better to breathe in and out through your nose anyway. And like, if you're wearing a mask, it's still better breathing in and out through the nose, because you're reducing the amount of droplets that are coming out of your mouth. So that's the first point, Ray, that I would impress on the listeners and the viewers here, because to me it's so important and it's been missed. The authorities aren't telling us to do this. The authorities are telling us to do A, B, and C. But it's been missed, and it's very important because basically the nose is a really useful filter. And it's about breathing in and out through the nose and breathing less. Less is more. It's a strange fact that the less we breathe, the more oxygenated the body becomes. That sounds like a contradiction, but that's the way it is. And if someone wants to look up why that is, it's called the Bohr effect, B-O-H-R, which means that oxygen can only be released from the blood in the presence of CO2. So carbon dioxide isn't a waste gas. It's one of the most important regulators in the human body. But you can look that up and check it out. All we have to do now is to realize that breathing in and out through the nose is the way to do this. So,
great. Yeah, I suppose for me, when we have spoken about this over the years, not just in one-to-one, but also during many of the workshops that we've delivered over the years. And I can remember the first time Tom was many years ago my psychotherapist, and when we initially met, and and before I had any understanding of the area that I work in today, we spoke about trauma and breathing and grounding and all of those things. And for where my head was at the time was so fast paced, and I was just looking for a quick fix, in regards to things that were going on in my life. I wanted to piece them back together. Hearing that nasal breathing could be beneficial to me just didn't make sense, just didn't add up. My head was, again, it was just too far down the road for that. And that was the problem. My head was too far down the road instead of being here with me. So I suppose over the years, what I have come to see that the more specialists that I've come across that I find interested in the work, nasal breathing has popped up time and time again, and breathing has popped up time and time again, and how we go about that. And for myself, all of my exercise, I do it nasal breathing. Now, initially, the issue for me then was always playing sports and always being competitive. For me to get to the stage where I could carry out a workout that I was breathing in and out through my nose, initially I had to slow down, so the nose dictated the pace that I could go at, and it was hard for me, whereas I initially found other people getting further ahead of me because I couldn't breathe fast enough to keep, it was in my head, I couldn't breathe fast enough to keep up with them. So today, by sticking with that, I do breathe in and out through my nose through doing all exercise throughout the day and whatnot. And so the nose dictates the pace for me, the breath dictates the pace, but it also is a constant reminder to slow my very busy active head down. and it's something that I've practiced over the last 10 years, and more on a lot of scenarios I didn't see the relevance of it, but now today, you know, over the last couple of years, I definitely do see the importance, and how important it is, and specifically to be mindful. Now's the time we need to be mindful more than ever. Now's the time where I suppose we're all saying, you know, what I'm hearing and hearing coming through the charity is that over the not now, but you know, over the years, that I would love to be able to do that, but I just don't have the time, you know, to practice those things, to do those things. But now we do have the time to practice something like this. And I suppose when during the courses that we deliver, Tom, and when you initially would say to people about taping your mouth at night, and the reaction, you know, people look at you like you have three heads, you know, and I'm sure people hearing this for the first time, taping your mouth at night, he needs to go and see a therapist. I suppose it's just important to elaborate around that a little bit more, you know, why we would actually do that, and why it would be important, and how it could result in a scientific perspective, how that would benefit us in a physiological way through having a better sleep, as you suggested.
Okay, how do I know that I breathe through my mouth when I'm sleeping? Or how do I know that I breathe through my nose when I'm sleeping? If I awaken with a dry mouth, obviously I've been breathing through my mouth. Now, one of the things that we know that our breathing is incorrect, if we get cold hands, the chances are it's a breathing issue, simply because of circulation. Now, when I reduce my breathing, I increase blood flow. So one of the strange things about carbon dioxide is it opens up our blood vessels. So by reducing our breathing, we actually increase our tolerance to carbon dioxide. Now, we tend to think that carbon dioxide is a waste gas, but it isn't. It's one of the most important regulators in the human body. So increasing our tolerance to CO2 has got many benefits. One, it'll make us calmer. Two, it'll increase blood flow. And three, it opens up our airways. So it opens up our blood vessels and opens up our airways. It stimulates the vagus nerve. And stimulating the vagus nerve is a parasympathetic response. Now, what I mean there is, a sympathetic response is the fight or flight response, which lots of people are familiar with. Now, the parasympathetic response is rest and digest. So it's the opposite to the fight or flight. So when we reduce our breathing, we stimulate the vagus nerve, which makes us calmer. So reducing our breathing, doing little breath holds, that stimulates the vagus nerve. Now, other things that makes us calm and helps us, like when I sleep, if I'm breathing out through my mouth when I'm sleeping, I'm dropping my CO2 levels too low. Now, what can happen if I drop my CO2 levels too low by breathing out through the mouth? Well, there's a few things. You probably will snore if you're breathing through the mouth. So your wife or partner or whoever is with you may not take too kindly to that. Another thing that might happen, you probably will waken to go to the loo in the middle of the night. So it seems that what happens is we drop our CO2 levels too low. It makes us more anxious. And the anxiety wakens us. And when we get anxious, it can go to our kidneys. So it makes us go to the loo. So one of the benefits is you can get a full night's sleep when you tape your mouth. And anybody that's scared about taping their mouth, it's actually very simple and it's very easy to do. So all we've got to do is I use 3M micropore tape, and it's 1-inch surgical tape. And basically what I do is I tear a couple of inches off and I turn it onto itself so that the ends aren't sticky, just the middle piece is sticky. And I tape my mouth. And basically what that does for me is as I said earlier, it's a cue for me to say to my subconscious that the day is over, it's time for sleep. Now, when I do that there, it allows me to breathe in and out through the nose. So it stops me reducing my CO2 levels too low to make me anxious enough to have to go to the loo. It's also really good for your dental hygiene, simply because you're not drying up all the saliva that neutralizes any acids that's in the mouth. So it also means that I'm going to have a nice moist mouth in the morning, and my head is clear. You'd be amazed how a racing head will keep you awake at night. And I'm sure people have seen themselves with ruminating thoughts, as we call them, and it just keeps going round and round and round and round. And we don't know what to do. When we tape the mouth, it makes all the difference. And get yourself some tape, you get it in any pharmacy. It's called 3, the number 3M micropore tape. It's 1 inch. And when we do tape our mouths, you'll be amazed at how alert you can become in the morning, how different you feel, how it stops you overthinking, how calm you are, how calm you can be. And as I said earlier, CO2 stimulates the vagus nerve, which makes us calmer. So therefore, all night, we're in a state of calm, relaxed, restful, healing sleep. And then we can awaken fully refreshed in the morning. And having a really good night's sleep is so important in these challenging times.
Yeah. More so at your age too.
Well, you see, Raven called me this morning and I thought he was just checking up on the elderly, but anyway.
No, that's great, Tom. That's great. I think that's, it's a lot of information for people to take in. I would highly suggest now's the time to give things to this a go. And the more I've seen, sorry, go ahead.
It is. And another thing that would be really useful is walk out on your lawn, ground yourself on a daily basis. Walk out on paving, walk out on slate, whatever covering you have. And grass is really good. Tarmac won't ground you, by the way, because there's a bitumen man-made cover on it. But if we ground ourselves, we'd be amazed at how useful that can be. Just get into the habit of doing that. And if you want to see something on grounding from a cardiological point of view, go to YouTube and look for Dr. Stephen Sinatra grounding. So Dr. Stephen Sinatra grounding, he's a cardiologist, and he tells us from a cardiological point of view all the benefits of grounding. And you'd be amazed. And the first thing that really caught me was he says, it thins the blood. So anybody that has got any issues, cardiological issues, have a look at Dr. Stephen Sinatra. Do what he says, and you'll be amazed at the difference. So grounding is another thing that will be really useful in this time. So breathing in and out through the nose, tape your mouth at night. And if you're having difficulty taping your mouth at night, tape it during the day. When you're watching TV or doing something, tape it during the day to get yourself used to it. It's well worth getting into the habit of doing that and having a go at this time. Look, we're not even going to have callers to see us doing things like that. So do it now. Make the most of this time to learn new skills. And those are two things that I want to leave you with: is breathing in and out through the nose. Part of that is taping the mouth at night, and grounding. They're really useful at this time, just to maintain good health. And at this time, we need all the help that we can.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, look, we'll leave it there for today. I think I'll add a couple of those links to the post on regards Dr. Stephen Sinatra, and we can put some useful links where Tom suggested in regards to find out more information on breathing. and also we'll put something up in regards grounding. So small steps every day. I can tell you personally in my life that it's been very beneficial, and through breathing and through grounding. And I think now that we all have an opportunity to try these wee things each day, because we are at home, a large section of us. Over the next few weeks, we want to bring more videos to you. And if there's anything specific you want us to talk about, you can send a message to the My Facebook page, and we'll try to address them as best we can. I'll also put a link to Tom's website if anybody wants to contact Tom and direct themselves. You're more than welcome to do that. But for now, thanks for tuning in, and we'll speak to you soon.